everyone, my name is Sarah, and today we are going to be learning about the history of one of my favorite Korean foods ever. That is tteokbokki. So, have you guys eaten tteokbokki lately? Oh, it's so good. I really love getting tteokbokki from the little paper cups. Usually they sell them in little stalls on the street where I live. And it's kind of like, sometimes I'll be going home late at night after a long, difficult day working or studying, and I pick up my little cup of tteokbokki and I smell it. It's like, it's just, it smells so good. It tastes even better, and it's of course best to eat with friends and family and people that we love. So we're going to learn about how this dish came to exist in Korea and around the world. So I'm very excited to learn more. Tteokbokki is a Korean dish commonly made with rice cakes, fish cakes, and scallions. Toppings like boiled eggs, cheese, dumplings, noodles, and deep-fried vegetables are popular additions. So I think if you're Korean, probably know what tteokbokki is, right? And so you'll know how tteokbokki is made, usually with rice cakes or tteok, fish cakes or 어묵, and then scallions, which is pa, I believe, in Korean. So you put the rice cake, the fish cake, the scallions, the gochujang. It's just perfect. It's so simple, but so good. And so if you like rice cakes and fish cakes, you'll probably like tteokbokki as well. And if you want to add a little something extra, you can also put a boiled egg, cheese, dumplings, noodles, or deep-fried vegetables. So definitely not very healthy, but man, is it tasty. It tastes amazing. So these things that you add extra, you can call those additions. So for instance, if I were ordering pancakes at an American breakfast diner, I could potentially get, extra bananas or extra syrup. The bananas or the syrup could also be called an addition because they don't come automatically with the meal. Tteokbokki is seasoned with a sauce made from a chili paste called gochujang. So when we're talking about food, usually in Korean cooking, we use a lot of like yangnyeom, right? So that yangnyeom, as a noun, we call that seasoning. And when we want to talk about, the process of putting the yangnyeom or the seasoning into the food, we can say that the food is seasoned, or I'm seasoning the food. So tteokbokki, of course, it has a lot of, seasonings in it. And as we all know, usually the seasoning is made from gochujang, or a red chili paste. So just so you know, gochujang has become really popular in like the American foodie or cooking community. You should probably know that a lot of people mispronounce it as gochujang. As someone who's been studying Korean for a long time, this like hurts my ears when I hear it. But I just want to make sure that you know. So if you and your friends are maybe talking about Korean food and your American friends or your friends from some other country, they say, oh yeah, I love gochujang. That way you won't be surprised and not know what they're talking about. And gochujang, it is really, really, really good though. So where does tteokbokki come from? Well, tteokbokki originates from the Joseon dynasty's royal court cuisine. According to the 19th century cookbook, 시의전서, there was a version made by stir-frying rice cakes and sirloin slices. So I'm really sorry if I butchered or did a really bad job on the pronunciation for this. I haven't seen it in Hangul, and as some of you may know, the romanization for English from Korean can sometimes be kind of weird. So I think it's 시의전서, but if I got it wrong, definitely make sure to let me know in the comment section below. So we're all here to learn English, Korean, all the languages. I'm still a student learning these things as well, so we can always get better together. So tteokbokki, it's actually been around for a decently long time. It originated, or it comes from, or it began during the Joseon dynasty. So it was part of the Joseon dynasty royal court cuisine. So this is not something that, normal people could eat every day. nowadays, 떡 and 어묵, it's really, really cheap. You can buy tteokbokki on the street for maybe 2,000, 3,000 won, which it's affordable for most people. But back in the day, Korea, it had a lot of economic hardships, and it was a very unequal society. So if you were the king, of course, you can eat the best of everything every day if you wanted to. But most people did not have that luxury. And white rice, and especially the type of rice that you can use to make 떡 or rice cakes, there wasn't a whole lot to go around. So not everyone could eat things like 떡 or tteokbokki back then. So how do we know that tteokbokki comes from the Joseon dynasty? Well, there's a 19th century cookbook called the 시위전서. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Make sure to let me know if I'm not. And according to this old book, there was a version of tteokbokki that was made by stir-frying rice cakes or 떡 and sirloin slices. So a cookbook, I think it's pretty evident probably from the name, but basically a cookbook is a book where you can see lots of recipes so that you can cook them and eat them, hopefully. So cookbook, I think it's a pretty easy word. In English, we really like things that rhyme. So cookbook, it sounds kind of cute. I don't know. English speakers like that sort of thing. There are quite a lot of words and phrases that use that type of rhyme or alliteration. So in this cookbook called the 시위전서, there was a version of tteokbokki made by stir-frying rice cakes and sirloin slices. So what is tteokbokki in Korean? So it's 떡, which is rice cakes, and then 볶기, which is literally, like 볶다, like to stir something while you're frying it in a pan. So that like 볶음 or 볶기, in English we would call that to stir fry or a stir fry. So 볶기, I think that's like the noun form. So tteokbokki literally means stir-fried rice cakes in English, right? So it makes sense that the old version from the 19th century cookbook would also have some similar attributes or some things in common with the tteokbokki that we know and love today. But there is definitely one very special addition to the tteokbokki that I've never seen, at least in modern tteokbokki, which is they added sirloin slices. So sirloin, usually this is referring to an expensive cut of beef. And I'm sure all of you know that beef is really, really expensive in Korea. It's actually relatively expensive in the US as well, although not quite as expensive as it is here in Korea. And especially back then, wow, they couldn't import it from Australia or the United States or somewhere else. It had to be made from cows here in Korea. And because Korea is covered in mountains, there's actually not a whole lot of space to raise cows in the first place. So cows were very rare, and usually they were animals that worked. So eating a cow or eating sirloin beef slices in your tteokbokki, now we think that's crazy. Back then, it was even crazier. So yeah, I guess I wish I could be a king during the Joseon dynasty. It sounds like I'd be able to eat a lot of tasty things. Okay, so we know that tteokbokki, it originated or it started or it came from the Joseon dynasty cookbook, and that the first recipe that was found was made by stir-frying rice cakes and sirloin slices. So what other types of tteokbokki might have come from that time? There is also a soy sauce-based version with short ribs or 갈비. Oh, I love 갈비. The latter was also mentioned in the 1936 version of the cookbook 조선 요리 제법. So I think I did a little bit better with the pronunciation on this one. Yes? No? If not, definitely make sure to let me know in the comment section below. I won't be hurt. I just want to improve so I can be better for you guys. Okay, so we talked about two recipes for tteokbokki. One was made by stir-frying rice cakes and sirloin slices, and another one was made with short ribs or 갈비. So we have two different versions of tteokbokki that we're talking about. So if we want to talk about the second one or the 후자, we can say the latter. So the latter, the opposite of the latter is the former. So if we wanted to refer back again to this version of tteokbokki made with sirloin slices, we could say that the former was mentioned. But because we're talking about the second one, it says that the latter was mentioned in the 1936 version of the cookbook, 조선 요리 제법. So the word mentioned, I believe in Korean that would be 언급하다 or 언급되다. So when something is mentioned, it means it's talked about or it's referred to. Okay? All right, so we're hearing about all these crazy expensive versions of tteokbokki from the Joseon dynasty. Some of them are made with super expensive beef. Some of them are made with galbi. I certainly have never seen this type of tteokbokki in my life. So I'm really curious, where is the tteokbokki that I eat usually? Where is that actually from? So we can read it right here. The modern version of tteokbokki is credited as an invention of Ma Bok-lim in 1953. While helping out at a Chinese restaurant, Ma accidentally dropped rice cakes into a bowl of hot sauce. So we know that the other versions of tteokbokki, they appeared in the cookbooks, the Shi Jeonso, and also the 조선 요리 제법. So, and we know about that because it's written down in official documents, right? But the modern version of tteokbokki is credited as an invention of Ma Bok-lim. So this word credited, it means you're giving someone credit. You're acknowledging that someone did something or invented something. So tteokbokki is credited to a person named Ma Bok-lim. So that means that people generally agree, they kind of 인정, they admit that she was the one to invent it. And so invent, that means to make something that is totally new. So a lot of things that are in the screen or are being used for you to watch this video were all inventions. The computer or the phone or tablet that you're watching on, these were inventions. The camera that I'm talking to right now, that was also an invention. This remote control, this television screen, PowerPoint, the software, these are all inventions or things that are made by humans. So I think in Korean it would be 발명하다. So very, very important word when we're talking about innovation or new things. So it's interesting because Ma Bok-lim, she is credited or she gets credit for inventing tteokbokki in 1953. However, it wasn't actually on purpose. It's not like they were, thinking like, okay, I want to make a rice cake dish with gochujang spicy sauce and voila, tteokbokki. No, that's not what happened. So it was actually created by accident. So Ma Bok-lim was working in a Chinese restaurant, and while they were working, they accidentally, not on purpose, so by accident, 실수로 우연하게 dropped rice cakes into a bowl of hot sauce. So imagine you're in the Chinese restaurant, you're working, you've got a bunch of tteok in your hands, and then you trip over something, and all the rice cakes fall into a pot of hot sauce, and it's like, oh my god, my boss is gonna yell at me. So I used to work at a restaurant. I never had any, lucky situations like this. I did drop things a lot, and I made a mess, and that's why I don't work there anymore. But lucky for Ma Bok-lim, an accidental invention of dropping the rice cakes into the gochujang hot sauce turned out to be a huge hit in South Korea and across the world. After tasting it, Ma was inspired to create a rice cake dish with a gochujang-based sauce. She began selling it in the Seoul neighborhood of Sindang, resulting in immediate success. So I'm actually surprised. So tteokbokki as a concept, it's been around, as we said before, since the 19th century, and we know that because of the cookbooks from then. But the version of tteokbokki that you and I actually would be able to eat on a regular basis, it was only invented in 1953. So after accidentally dropping the rice cakes into the pot of gochujang, she decided to create a rice cake dish with a gochujang-based sauce. And that is what we now know and love as tteokbokki. And so after she invented this new dish, she began selling it in the Seoul neighborhood of Sindang. And the result, or the aftermath, or what happened next, is that she had immediate or very quick, it happened right away, success. So that is the story of tteokbokki. So as you can probably see, I'm very excited to have been talking about this topic. I love tteokbokki. I love Korean food. I love gochujang. So it's always cool to see where my favorite dishes in Korea are actually from. Alright, well I hope that all of you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure to leave us a like and a subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or methods for how I can improve my pronunciation in Korean, make sure to let us know in the comment section below. Alright, everybody have a great day, and I will see you again next week. Bye!